And welcome back to the Cover 3 podcast here on CBS Sports. That's Barton Simmons. I'm Chip Patterson. Thank you if you're watching on YouTube, youtube.com/cover3. Go and subscribe to our YouTube channel, please. If you're listening to this, download it wherever you get your podcasts. You might be listening to this podcast within a news story because this is breaking news. That's why you see the sirens. Woo, woo. And this is we look beautiful because we're fresh off the set. CBS Sports HQ from news that we did not anticipate tackling at the top of the 6 o'clock hour. And it is that Nick Saban has tested positive for COVID-19, along with Alabama Athletic Director Greg Byrne. He found out the results of his positive test this afternoon. He left the building immediately, went home, began the isolation process. Nick Saban says he is asymptomatic, and he has passed on the preparation duties, at least, to offensive coordinator Steve Sarkisian. The Alabama-Georgia game that we laid out a full mega preview for earlier today. Barton, I'm still standing by all of it. Like, I don't think that I have changed much outside of everything around this game and the epic nature of this game, and, you know, all the stakes and the fact that it is Alabama and Georgia, these two, the class of the SEC type programs. I really feel like I'm still looking at this game the same way, even if it is without the greatest coach in college football history likely being on the sidelines.
Yeah, I am too. I think, like, I want to start too, and like making sure that the human element of this is covered on our end, in the sense that this is, like, the reality is Nick Saban got COVID, and like his health is, I think, sort of the most important thing in the initial front. And I think, like, the thing that is sort of like throughout this in the build up to the season and the discussion of whether or not to have the season, it always did appear to me, from my point of view and my little medical knowledge and all of that, that, like, the players weren't really truly at risk. Yes, I know that they are to some degree, and I get that, like, there's all sorts of different sort of opinions, medically and otherwise, about sort of the potency of COVID. But the more, I think, probably pressing risk of this was always coaches and support staff and people in the building
and their families and the people that, you know, that you could pass it on to.
Right. And look, I mean, the reality is Nick Saban's 69 years old. And so I hope certainly that we're a few days away from saying, okay, Nick Saban is testing negative and he's back and he's healed, and all he had was a runny nose for a couple of days and we're good. So, you know, that's kind of the starting point for sure. But obviously then you do certainly move to the game. And with that, like, I'm with you in that Nick Saban's absence is going to be very surreal. It's going to be, it's going to feel, I mean, just seeing that sideline, the sideline is not going to be rudderless, but it's going to feel very rudderless from the outside looking in, because it's just who's pacing, who's yelling, who's ranting, who's like throwing their clipboard, like who takes on that role. And I guess it's Steve Sarkisian. That's who they've named as sort of the day-to-day CO, so to speak. But it is going to be, I think, a bizarre feeling to watch. And I think, but I also think that Alabama is built such that Nick Saban is important, but the structure he's put in place in that program, the discipline that he's instilled, the procedures in place, the habits, like, those are the things that make Alabama great. And so I think that, you know, Alabama is still Alabama on Saturday night.
We mentioned the human aspect of this early on in our HQ hit, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think we each touched on it in our first answer.
I apologize for not mentioning it off the top. I mean, we just went through like 15 minutes of like all the different levels, and I'm being raw right here. Like it's
right.
the engine got going, and I guess that's one of those weird things is it's really easy to get lost. There's so many levels to this that I'm glad that you mentioned it first, that it is very, very important that we mentioned the human part of this, and athletic director Greg Byrne as well.
Mm-hmm.
But like to think that this is going to be such a, like some shell shocking news. I think that the importance of trying to value every single, like I'm concerned about every single Florida staff member that has tested positive for COVID-19. As we get the reports of more staff members that have tested positive over there, as the Gators game did end up getting moved I guess, hey, that's another bit of news that's happened since we posted our podcast like 6 hours ago. Florida LSU moved to December 12th, most likely tentatively moved there as the numbers continue to increase on the positive tests on the Florida side. All of those are very concerning. The hope, like you mentioned, is that Nick Saban is going to remain asymptomatic and that he is going to have a full recovery and that he's going to be back on the sidelines for Alabama this season without any kind of complications or anything further. The reality of what Alabama can be without Nick Saban is very, very much focused on what you said, which is like, this is an experienced team on the offensive side for sure. And in a lot of key places where they're going to, as long as they continue to maintain the habits that they have carried into their, for the most part, gangbuster start to the season, defensively, Ole Miss game removed from that consideration, then you're going to see a championship level effort from the Crimson Tide. And if you're going to see a championship level effort from the Crimson Tide against Georgia, then this can still be one heck of a ball game. But in the same way that you get chills before the really big games, just because of this almost like ghost-like cloud that sort of envelops the really epic ones, it is going to be very, very eerie that a major storyline is Nick Saban not going to be a part of it. You will talk about it right off the jump. We'll talk about it for the rest of the week on CBS Sports HQ as we do our run up to the game. But I don't know. I'm curious. How are you feeling about that staff? Because we talk about that Alabama staff a lot. We talked to Travis Reier about the makeup of that staff. And are you in a position right now where, you think that they are ready to answer the challenge? Because I think the challenge is much more for the staff than it is for the players in terms of how you respond to Nick Saban not being in person, at least a part of the preparation and a part of game day.
Yeah, that one's a tough one. I think it's hard to know how this staff is going to respond because let's just, and I don't even know if that's been sort of verified that Steve Sarkisian is day head coach. The wording of Nick Saban's statement certainly implied that, sort of said like he's going to be running the operation in the building while I'm gone or whatever it was. And it didn't sort of out and out say he will be the acting head coach on game day. I assume he will be. And if he is, I mean, Nick Saban is not calling plays on offense. He's not calling plays on defense. He's a defensive guy, but he certainly appears from our perch to be very hands-on with what's going on offense. He appears to be quite a micromanager. If you're going to hand the keys to the car to the offensive coach who is also calling plays, I do think that there's a possibility that complicates things. There's a possibility that complicates the overall game plan. There's a possibility that it complicates the play calling. I don't anticipate that being a significant storyline, though, just because I think these guys are professionals, and I think that this staff is made up of such a bunch of veterans that they'll have a system in place. Maybe it's Charles Huff takes over play calling duties with Sarkisian kind of having more of a more of a veto power or more, third down or goal lines or whatever it is. But I think that this is a staff that's very capable, very equipped to sort of weather this. And, I mentioned it on the HQ. Like, you almost have to, in fact, as on HQ, I went to the Alabama website roster to figure out, see if I'm forgetting any of their analysts, because they have so many like former head coach analysts. They don't have them listed, so you gotta have to just know them. But Boone's former head coach, Major Applewhite, former head coach, Charlie Strong, former head coach, Mike Stoops, former head coach. Like, all of these guys, they're just it's just like a bunch of who's who of head coaches that are just there that can be support in this. And in whatever way they need to be. So, don't cry for Alabama from a preparation standpoint. I think that they're fully equipped to get this done. Kyle Flood, another one who I didn't mention yet, who was a Rutgers head coach. Like, they're everywhere on that staff. And so I don't lack confidence in Alabama's ability to put together a system that works on game day without Nick Saban involved.
But if I can put on my overanalyzing hat, if I can take this like in a very speaking out of turn type place, those are a lot of alpha dogs. Are we staring at each other, wondering who's going to step up? There's a lot of coaches and a lot of personalities. The big voice just left the room. Are all the siblings right now trying to decide who's the real babysitter now that mom and dad are like out on the vacation right now? I don't know. I don't know the pulse of that locker room, but I think not the locker room, the coaches like meeting rooms.
Right.
But that to me is where, like, that is the next step of, I think this is a bigger challenge for the coaches than it is for the players, because the big voice, the one that keeps everybody in check, is gone. Maybe he's on Zoom, but he's gone. And so, does everybody know their place? So,
and you brought this up on HQ, so I'll tip the hat to you here, but the real, like, when I'm envisioning this game, and when you're sort of trying to envision, like, okay, something goes wrong, who's the coach? Like, what you're asking is, like, who's the coach that's going to get in everybody's ass and, rant and rave and scream and throw a headset and keep everybody focused and all that kind of stuff. And you're right. Like, I think that's a fair question, because Nick Saban is so domineering in that way. But when I visualize this game and when I visualize something going wrong, I don't visualize Steve Sarkisian getting in somebody's ass. I don't visualize Charles Huff or Kyle Flood or Pete Golding or whoever. I visualize Najee Harris or Alex Leatherwood or
Devonta Smith, another senior.
Devonta Smith or Dylan Moses. Like, that is a very veteran group. I think there's really strong leadership on that team. Typically is at Alabama. That's not rare, but I think there's really strong leadership in this team. And we saw it at Ole Miss. The one time that they punted, I don't know if you remember, the one time they punted, that Alabama punted against Ole Miss, Alex Leatherwood came off the field and was hot. Like, he was heated. And I want to say it was Cole Kubelik who posted like the clips of the next series. And Alex Leatherwood was absolutely like it was
I need
unsafe.
to look at that. Yeah,
it was unsafe, like, out there, like, to be a defender in front of him. And that was after he really kind of, called his teammates to task. And I just think that presence is there. I'm not really worried about that side of it. I think if there's a side to worry about, it's, is Sarkisian, not call the perfect game because he's got too much on his plate or something like that. I think the focus will be there, because this team is just, these guys came back from these guys skipped the NFL draft to come back here for a reason.
We're going to be recording locks in a little bit, I guess, like 15, 16 hours. Are you going to put you could throw this one on the card at all?
My initial reaction is, so the line Georgia -6. Alabama -6, right? And I would imagine, like, do you think it'll change? Do you think the line will move?
I've seen initial reports that it's already dropped to 4.
Okay. So I actually kind of love that on the Alabama side of it. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Nick Saban is going to have an incredible impact in his absence. But I think of this. I do think of this in the terms of when you play hurt, you have to bring a different level of resolve and focus to the game, to the field, to the court, whatever it is, than when you're healthy. And I think in a lot of cases, it brings out the best in the competitor. And I think that you've got an entire team that's going to be really probably like very much activated. And so I think that presents like a lot of value for Alabama to be very equipped to handle this. Maybe I'm like I don't know. Like, do you think that I'm underestimating this? I think this creates an opportunity for Alabama to maybe like be, I don't know, dare I say it, like even more, like even better. I don't know. That sounds wrong.
Yeah, okay. I'm glad it came out. Let's roll that back a little bit. It doesn't change my it doesn't really change where I'm at. I thought Alabama and I thought under, and
Alabama laying the points before.
Yeah, I thought Alabama.
So that's what it is. It's basically like you're getting 2 additional points of value, I think.
Yeah. If
you're in just this game.
Yeah, I am probably going to be locking up the under. I still got the night to meditate on it. I mean, if anything, this is just like another reason to not try and get too wild and too reckless and just be like, all right, best talent in college football is about to go be on the field. Let's just let it rock. That kind of thing.
Scout, who's going to win, Alabama or Georgia? She doesn't know. She had no idea.
She said Kentucky. She's
that's right. That's right.
She's farting stutter.
Scout, I'm talking about. Sorry, Coca. You may have to do some editing here. Scout, please leave. Please leave. I know. You can tell me in a minute. All right. Where were we? Were we closing or were you?
Yeah, we were about to close.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. No worries. Anyway, so we will be dropping our locks very soon. We will get this fired off and we will continue to break this down all through the week. As Barton mentioned at the top, as I should have mentioned at the very top, but again, it's just head is going really fast right now. Number one, we have Nick Saban and athletic director Greg Byrne, asymptomatic, full recovery. Nick Saban's daughter is currently on Twitter right now, giving health updates, says that he is asymptomatic and that he's actually coaching practice on Zoom. He will hold a media availability tonight on Zoom. We will get very, very comfortable with Nick Saban's office over the next couple days.
Nick Saban's invincible. I can't, like, he is the healthiest looking 69-year-old man. Like I feel like he has gotten younger through the years. And so look, I think he can handle this
for sure.
So
get better, Coach Saban. He is Barton Simmons. You can follow him on Twitter at Barton Simmons. You can follow me at Chip_Patterson. Barton, thank you very much.
Yep.